My existence, I perceive it with my own senses. Okay.
What arguments have you been involved in?
All right. So I spoke to the American kids from the school of. Apparently, it's a school for public speaking.
Okay.
That's what their teacher told me, but I'm not sure if I misunderstood it a little bit. But I did speak to them. They were making different arguments, and I don't always believe in the arguments they were making. And when I didn't agree to them too much, I would debate them on the argument. So that's what I do with them. They're actually thankful for it because it trains them to be better speakers in the future.
Was it because you were uncertain about things?
No.
Pavlov doesn't know if he's a man, by the way.
Oh, there you go. Don't go full Hashim on me. Don't go full Hashim on me.
Last week,
don't go full Hashim.
Someone tried to back him into a corner.
Let's talk about being a man.
Okay.
Let's talk about overall existence.
Yeah.
My question of existence is not if I'm a man or a woman. It's an epistemological question. My existence, I perceive it with my own senses. With my sight, with my touch, with my hearing, with my taste. Yeah. That's why I know that I exist, right? However, my senses are not perfect. The things that I see, the things that I feel, the things that I perceive are not perfect. That is why I told Hashim, even though he plays dumb all the time, that I am not certain of my existence because I do not see my perception of my own existence as an absolute.
Okay.
The way I exist might not be exactly the same as I perceive myself. You perceive me in a different way than I perceive myself. They perceive me in a different way than I perceive myself. So who has the correct perception of myself? Nobody can tell for sure because our perceptions are flawed. And that is the real truth of my claim that I am not certain if I exist. Because I do not know how I exist.
This could all be a dream, it could all be an illusion.
It could, it's possible.
You could be in a coma and you're actually
it is possible.
Imagining this.
You could exist.
Huh?
On the opposite end of the scale, you could exist many times.
Many times?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you're saying that you have a perception of yourself, everybody else has a perception of yourself.
Of course.
So whilst you're saying that might mean that you don't exist, it might mean that you exist many times.
That I exist many times, that
in different
the
realities?
perception creates existence.
Right, so
Okay.
we've got a perception of you, there's 4 of us here, you have your own perception, that's 5 realities of you, right?
And which one is real?
Yeah.
Which one is the true me? That's a good answer. You know, people like Hashim, for example, they will always deny these questions because they don't know how to answer them. And all they want to do is ridicule the questions. Is to say, are you a man or a woman?
Okay.
But
obviously that gets the tabloid.
yeah, obviously the
reaction.
people who are watching him and who support him will say,
he's not a man.
he's not a man. But in reality, think about it. What if Hashim, for example, is a woman who dreams that he's a man?
But she's a man.
That she's a good point. You got me there.
Okay.
But imagine that's how it is, and we are all the products of Hashim's imagination.
That would be
very scary. I don't want to be the product of Hashim's imagination.
Is reality deeper than the 5 senses that you talked about?
Of course it is.
Is there more? So what more is there?
It's much deeper.
This is when you get into spirituality, right?
No, this is not where you get into spirituality.
Why not?
I do not like to go
Don't
into spirituality.
Spirituality, what covers everything outside the 5 sense reality?
No, that's not what I mean. The 5 senses that we have are not the same 5 senses that everything has.
Okay.
For example, we have 3 color receptors in our eyes. We see green, we see red, we see blue.
Yeah.
The butterflies have 6 color receptors in their eyes. They see twice the amount of colors that we see.
Okay.
So who has the real truth of this world? Who can really say if this coat is blue? Is it us or is it the butterflies?
Okay.
Or maybe it's a daltonic animal, like the raccoon. I think raccoons are daltonic as far as I know.
And there was even the
For them
picture
it's
of
grey,
that
probably.
dress a few years ago that some people looked at it looked black, some people saw it was yellow, whatever. So 2 people, do you remember that? It was like an optical illusion.
Not quite. What are you talking about?
A picture on the internet of a dress that was like 2 colours. Some people look at it and said, okay, it's clearly black and blue. Other people
Oh yeah,
saw it as
there are many
yellow
optical
and
illusions,
yeah.
and they function because
So 2
we
people
only
can see the
perceive
same
3
thing
different
and
colors.
We perceive things.
There are many
differently.
optical illusions, and our touch, our hearing, our smell. Like, how can you smell something as well as a bear or a dog? You can't. How can you hear something as well as a as a deer? You can't. How can you see something as well as an eagle? You can't. So where is the truth? Is it our flawed senses, or is it their more acute senses, or is it something even beyond that? That is my real question. And that is the thing that people like Hashim will never understand, because once they admit that I have a point with these questions, that's it. Their ideology goes down the drain, because their certainty gets destroyed.
Okay. And I know you're big on being uncertain.
Sorry?
You're very reluctant to say that you're sure of anything. And I think they're very
I'm
sure
reluctant because I don't think that we can be sure of everything, of anything.
Okay.
I mean, why would you say that we can be sure of something? How can you be sure of something? Give me an example of something you're 100% sure of.
That I'm sitting here talking to you. I mean, it comes back to...
You're absolutely certain that you're talking to me right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Although it could be a dream.
Have you ever heard of David Hume?
No.
David Hume is a Scottish skeptic. He divided knowledge in 3 different parts. The first of them is relations of ideas. For example, 1 + 1 = 2. A triangle has 3 sides. These are ideals that logically we can come up with an answer to in our heads. We don't need to actually see that 1 + 1 = 2. We just know that 1 + 1 will equal 2 because it's logical, right? Now, the problem with this kind of knowledge is that it's restricted to theory. To apply those notions to the real world is very flawed. How can you have 1? The only way for you to have 1 is to apply the 1 to something. For example, 1 man. 1 man. 1 man + 1 man = 2 men, right?
Yeah.
But we are not the same. We are not exactly the same. You have a beard, you have a different weight than I do, you have a different height than I do. So, to a basic level, I am not exactly the same as you are, even though roughly we are 2 men, and roughly we are rather similar, but we're not exactly the same. So you can't do the equation of 1 man + 1 man = 2 men, because we're not absolutely the same.
At the end of the day, you kind of have to decide on something, right? Maybe we all have our different perceptions, but we kind of have to live in a shared world where we agree. We live in a shared world where we agree upon some type of reality. So how do you determine what that is?
How do I choose the reality that I follow?
Yeah, and how do your reality and my reality, and how do we kind of reach an agreed point between them?
Probability. Probability is what I follow. I don't follow certainties. I don't follow this, why does the tree grow? Why are we here? Because Christ, or because Allah, or because whatever. I don't follow this stuff. There is probability. There is a bigger probability that we as humans evolved from the Australopithecus, and the Australopithecus evolved from other creatures, and the other creatures evolved from previous creatures, right? There's a bigger probability for it because we have actual proof of it. Even though all proof is flawed to a certain extent, the probability that that's what really happened is much greater. That's what I really follow in life. And that is why some people will never understand, because they are too weak to accept uncertainty in their life. They're too weak to accept that, to accept their own ignorance.
So they put their faith in a faith.
There are different definitions of faith. One of the definitions of faith is to believe without seeing, without perceiving anything.
Yeah.
That is what many religious people do. Now, my definition of faith, and the faith that I have, is I follow what has the greatest probability of being true. I see evidence, I see this, I see that, I perceive this, I perceive that, and based on my perception, based on my opinion, I make a conclusion on it. But it's not baseless. I do have a basis to my opinions. And again, let's come back to David Hume. That's the first kind of knowledge. It's almost perfect, but when applied to the real world, it's not perfect.
Yeah.
The second kind of knowledge that David Hume was talking about, what's up, Mustafa, is matters of fact.
Okay.
For example, you're sitting here right beside me, right? Matter of fact, I can see you, I can perceive you right now.
Yeah.
With my senses, I can hear you, I can touch you, I can see you, right? I could maybe smell you if I had a better sense of smell, but probably I can't. My point is, it all depends, matters of fact always depend on our senses. And accepting the fact that senses are flawed, well, seems like we can't be sure of them, can we? I had sometimes dreams where I wake up inside the dream while still dreaming.
Wow.
More or less like Inception. More or less. I had some dreams where I didn't realize I was dreaming because it seemed very realistic.
The thing to make.
That's the second kind of knowledge, and it too is flawed, just like the first one. Now the third kind of knowledge is observed regularities. I have seen a black crow today. I've seen many black crows in my life. All the crows I've seen, in fact, were black, which makes me assume that all crows are black. I've never seen a white crow in a textbook. I've never seen a white crow in media. I mean, maybe in cartoons or something like that. But unless there are albinos, which is a condition, it's not like a natural white crow, unless there are albinos, of course. But which makes me to believe that all crows are black. But I haven't seen all crows, so it's not a matter of fact. But I have to make that assumption because I simply cannot say for sure if I have seen all the crows that exist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So relations of ideas is the predictions humans make to be able to live in the world that they cannot perceive completely.
Yeah.
It's even more flawed than matters of fact, and matters of fact is even more flawed than relations of ideas. Observed regularity is what I was talking about. I kind of confused myself.
Fine.
So those are the three kinds of knowledge that David Hume divided all knowledge into, and I would argue that they are the only knowledge we have. And seeing that they are all flawed, you cannot really assume, you cannot really say for certain that you exist in the way that you perceive yourself. And that is why I said that I'm not sure of my existence. And that is why Hashim will always make the ridiculous claim, are you a man or a woman?
Are you a man or a woman? Yeah.
You see what I mean?
The
very question proves his ignorance, because he will always deny the veracity of my question. He will always deny that I have a point in making the question that I am making. That's what I have to say about it. You know, if this explanation isn't still not enough for people to understand what I'm about in all of this, then either they are just stupid or they are just denying it to themselves. They're just denying it.
Just as you say, you can never be sure or 100% sure of anything. The religious people must not be 100% sure of what they claim.
Yes.
But I guess that's why they call it a faith, and they said, I've decided to go with it because that's easier than doing all this thinking that you're constantly doing.
Of course it's easier. It's easier, you know.
Just say, okay, but
and I understand,
and I don't need to think about it anymore.
I understand why some people might say that I'm putting them to sleep, that I'm saying some boring stuff. I understand it, but you don't go to school to be entertained, and you don't go to the circus to learn. There's entertainment and there's learning. Now I'm trying to make this as entertaining as possible. I'm trying to be concise here, which I think I am being. But the thing is, you need to pay a little bit of attention. You know, I'm talking about the people who are listening to me. Everybody needs to pay a little bit of attention about what I'm saying before they deny it. If they deny it without actually understanding anything what I'm saying, they just say, oh, you're confused. You don't know if you exist. Why should I listen to you? Well, maybe you should listen to me because my uncertainty is way, way more certain than your certainty. It's way more probable that I got the right answers than what they got, based on their blind faith. You know what I mean?
Unless they just hit the jackpot and been very, very lucky.
Which is a possibility. It's a possibility, but it's a far less likely possibility. That is my whole point. It's not about me saying I'm right, you're wrong, that's it, game over. It's about me saying I am more probable than another person to be correct because I can prove my point. And I can explain my point, and I can, rationalize it enough. So I would like people to actually pay some attention to the things I say, because it's not that I'm getting tired. It's just that it's a bit strange for me to have so many people tell me, "Oh, you're confused. You don't know anything." Well, yes, and that makes me know more than you do.
Interesting.
The acceptance of ignorance, as Socrates said, "I know that I know nothing."
Yeah.
And that's exactly the meaning that I see that he gave to the quote. He knows many things, but he also knows, but whatever he knows might not be true.
The illusion of knowledge is worse than the lack of knowledge.
You know, a fool who thinks he's intelligent is much stupider than a fool that knows he's foolish. And I don't think I'm a complete fool. There are some things that are that we can be almost certain about, that we have a lot of probability to be certain of. But I just can't assume that I'm certain about anything in the end.